So you must have been enlisted before you graduated then.
Well, we did, but they waited a week.
Right.
They gave us an extra week off before they took us to San Diego. There was 5 of us from my class. We all went into Navy. And
who were the other 4, if you recall?
Gordon Stokes, Frank Thurman. I'm sure you know that name. He was sheriff in Tulsa County for a lot of years. And let's see, Bill Sanders, and
familiar name,
and Robert LeMaster.
Okay. And now, had you all got together and decided we're going to join as soon as we graduate?
We had talked about it for a month or two, and of course, most of us were just 17. We had to have our parents' permission, and I liked them never got mine. I didn't think I was going to be able to go with them. But finally my mother wouldn't sign. She said no. She had 3 brothers already in the service, and she didn't want me to go till I had to.
Right.
And I said, well, I'll get to choose where I want to go this way as far as what branch of service by enlistment.
Well, that was my question. How did you decide to go to the Navy, all 5 of you?
I had one of my uncles in the Army told me, he said, go to the Navy. You'll usually have a dry bed, and you'll be out of the mud probably.
And they feed you
all of those things, you know. So he gave me good advice, and we went into the Navy, and they sent us to San Diego.
San Diego.
And we took some training there for about 8.5 or 9 months, I believe, and then I think I got to go home. I got to come home for a week, and then when I returned, about the 1st of January of '44, why they immediately shipped me overseas. By that time, they had divided us up. We were no longer together.
Right. Yes. And I understand you went to submarines.
I went to submarines, and one of the things that I thought that I might get to do was to go back to New London, Connecticut. I'd never been to the East Coast or anything like that. And I thought, well, that'd be some new territory. Well, it turned out that the Navy had a sub school right across the bay there in San Diego, and so that's where they sent me. I didn't go to New London, Connecticut. And so I spent 6 weeks there, and then about the 1st of January, they shipped me overseas to Pearl Harbor.
So this would have been 44 now.
Yeah, that was January of '44, and then they assigned me to a subtender, which is a large transport type ship, several decks, that goes out and establishes bases on some of the islands, and the submarines come in there to be renovated and refitted, painted up, or whatever had to be done, you know. Yes, and that's what a subtender did. Well, I was on the subtender for several weeks, and then in the meantime, we went to the Marshall Islands and established a base there, and the Piranha came in to be refitted, and that was the name of my submarine. And they assigned me to the Piranha. They needed somebody was getting off at that time, and so they assigned me to the Piranha, and I was on the Piranha for 14, 15 months.
And what was your main duty?
Well, I was a quartermaster, and the first patrol we were on, I did some lookout duty, but actually the quartermaster is really a kind of an assistant to the officer of the deck, and you keep the ship's log of speeds and change of speeds and change of directions and all the information, kind of a history, you know.
Yes.
And
keep the logbook.
And you stood 4-hour watches and off 8, and of course during battle stations when we were after the Japanese ships, why my duty was to do the steering. I was the helmsman for the submarine, and I did all the steering and change of speeds and stuff like that.
So you saw battle action then?
Oh yes, yeah. Oh yeah, several times. Yeah. We sunk several Japanese ships. Underwent a lot of depth charging.
How long were you underwater for the longest period of time?
Well, the
Yeah.
longest one time we were under attack. They were depth charging us pretty good, and so the captain, our sub was actually, it was supposedly tested for 300 feet depth of 300 feet, and we went to 300 feet, and the depth charges were still coming down and exploding around us. So he said, well, we'll just go to the bottom, and we went down to 550 feet. And we were down there. That was my longest time underwater. We were down there probably, maybe 14 hours, something like that. And during that period of time, when it really got heavy, and it didn't seem that way to me, but to the captain, I think he thought that we were about the end of the line, and they were going to sink us. So he had the pharmacist mate go from the forward torpedo room clear to the after torpedo room, passing out a little shot of brandy. My first taste of brandy, I'm 18 years old, and first shot of brandy, first taste of it, but fortunately they didn't sink us, of course, and we survived, and they finally left us, and